Welcome to the Answer is Yes podcast, where we interview some of the most interesting people that have said yes to opportunities in their life. We hope that through these stories, you can learn to create your own destiny by saying yes along the way. Join us as we explore the new series covering topics such as passion, integrity, and hard work. I'm your host, Jim Riley, and I hope you enjoy these interviews as much as I do. I believe that everyone has an important message worth hearing. Hello and welcome to the Answer is Yes podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Okay, I'm getting back on a roll of having guests on. Rod Kuntz, my partner, we do our business podcast, has been going fabulous. Matter of fact, that show's been in our top 10 downloads last several months, but it's been fun to break back out and get some outside guests in. And I've got a list of people that want to be on the show, which is a compliment. And I appreciate you all being patient with me to get you on the show. If you want to fast track it, here's how you fast track it. You know my buddy Rico out of California. First of all, you need to know him. Second of all, wear a cowboy hat in your profile picture and you'll be right on. There's no delay. So I've got Tim on the line today. Tim, how do you pronounce your last name?
It's Tim Lukai.
Lukai. Okay. I would have hacked it up for sure.
Oh yeah. It's a hard one.
Look, I'm so appreciative to have you on the show. We're very aligned in our beliefs and what we talk about to people and what we represent. And I'd like you to share a little bit of your background. That's our format. We get some background on you and then how you got to where you're at today and what you're doing. And if you can leave us enough time to talk about what you're doing right now, it is one of the biggest passions of mine. And I like to get on the mountaintops and scream this message about fatherhood. And that's going to be my little carrot I'm dangling while you tell your background story. So I'm going to turn it over to you for a minute, Tim.
Oh yeah. Thanks for having me on. It's an honor to connect with you and be a part of the show. And I'm born and raised in Newport Beach, Orange County, and I'm a surfer. And one day I want to be like Jim and be out on the range and actually not just wear a cowboy hat, but actually have a good reason to wear one. I grew up here and right out of college, I got involved in commercial real estate. My dad was a broker for years, so I did real estate for several years, ultimately finding myself doing all sorts of different sales positions because I wasn't enjoying commercial real estate. And then I found myself year and a half, 2 years into marriage and without a job, just kind of aimless, really praying, hey, God, like what? I don't want to just do a job to make money. I really want to do something purposeful and meaningful that would glorify and honor you. And that took a season of searching. Ultimately, a friend called me from Mariners Church, a local church here in Orange County, a big church, and asked if I wanted to join staff as a youth pastor. Appreciated the offer. I'd grown up doing Young Life ministry. A big part of my story is Young Life. I met my wife at a Young Life youth camp, and ultimately Mariners was their playbook for their youth ministry was moving towards a Young Life model of not waiting for kids to show up at church, but go out and connect with kids out in the community and really reach the lost kids that wouldn't show up at a church. And so I loved that. I was a big part of my story as a volunteer, but I was like, man, I'm not a pastor. I've taken 2 Bible courses as they were required at college. I'm not qualified. I don't think I'm your guy. Plus, I live in Orange County. I want to raise a family. Pastor salary ain't going to cut it for me. And just felt like a poor logical decision. And I definitely went on a journey of trusting God in that season. And the loudest voice in my life, other than God, is my wife. And we both sought prayer and wisdom and heard God's voice say, you need to step into that position. Ultimately, my wife pushed me because I was like, man, babe, you don't understand. I gotta make enough money to take care of. We didn't have kids yet, but I want to buy a home. I want to have kids, and trust me, what they're offering me isn't gonna work. And she's like, yeah, but God's economy is totally different than the world's standards. And I then ultimately heard God say, this isn't an option. This is a obedience call. And so I stepped in, and I thought I would do that for a few years. But 15 years later, I'm still employed at Mariners Church, and when it comes back to the provision of monetary things, I can share with your listeners that God has been abundant in his provision for me and my family. I own a home in Irvine and have 3 kids, and we're doing all right. We're not, killing it, but God has been good. And so 15 years at Mariners, the last 7, I have been the men's pastor at Mariners, and it's been an absolute exhilarating, joy-filled, life-giving experience. I had no idea that I would become so passionate about discipling men and building. I just believe when you build the man, you build the family. You build a great husband. You build an amazing father, which our world needs, that you touched on. And you really actually build the church, you build the community, you change the world. So I think, and that has nothing, and I don't want to say that discipling women isn't absolutely critical and imperative, but I just think the role of a man is so essential. And when he truly encounters Jesus, it's like, look out, man, he is going to change the world, and his life can be totally changed for the good. So that's the short version of the story of kind of me. I got 3 kids. I've been married for 17 years. I have my oldest is 11, a son named Maverick, and Sawyer is 9, and Greenlee is 6. So relatively young kids, and just beginning to get a little bit easier for us, but it's been amazing.
So a little bit to unpack there, but I want to share a story with you and with my listeners. I touch on it in my book. By the way, it's probably not right to be envious, but I'm looking at your Blackies poster behind you. Which, if you don't know what Blackies, a great surf spot, in Newport Beach. Spent a lot of early mornings there getting my surf.
We got Blackies, the Wedge, Doheny, and Sano. Probably all spots you used to love to surf.
Absolutely. So, you brought up Mariners, and, this podcast is primarily centered around business and kind of our life stories. And in my 20s, in my mid 20s, I was very successful at In-N-Out Burger. Many of you know my brother's the trustee there, but he was the CEO and president. I had a 12-year career there. And you're going to laugh, Tim, but I went on this missions trip with Mariners. And it was nice. a one day trip from, we left Mariners Church in Newport, went down to Tecate and 2 buses, and went south, hit a bunch of orphanages, went over the coastline, came back up through Ensenada, Tijuana, and then back to the church. It was one of those leave at like 4 a.m., got back at midnight type trips. Yeah. And, I asked the guy that was in charge, I think his name was Tano. And I said, hey man, what was the budget for this thing? We had about 15 people and 2 vans full of stuff. And I remember him saying during the day, like, this food will feed some of these orphanages, or these supplies will last a month or 2. I thought, wow, that's awesome. What a great work we did today. He said, well, the budget was $5,000. I'm like, oh, wow. And so I left there with my head between my legs, sad. And it's my ex-wife now, but we were talking about how pathetic our lives were, because that $5,000 that just blessed all those kids in the orphanages in Mexico, we had literally blown $5,000 the weekend before on a trip to Mammoth to go snowboarding. We got to get the new gear. We got to stay in the best place, great meals, lift tickets, all VIP pass, all this stuff. It was just stuff. And when we got back from that missions trip, we committed to living our lives differently for other people, no longer for ourselves. And I've lived that way. I'm 56 in January. I've lived that way the last 25 years. And wow, that's awesome. And, to relate that back to business, because I don't want any glory for this, but to relate that back to business, I've always had the heart of giving in my business and helping others since that happened to me through Mariners. And you were saying, you're talking about your ministry at Mariners. I'm like, oh my gosh, I had the ministry there too, to change my life and my career and how I did things. And if you follow my story and some of the successes I've had in my careers, just know that my heart of giving and helping came from that story, from that church that Tim's talking about. So
that's so cool, man.
Tim, there's no doubt that you've seen, the fruits of your labor and what God's given you. Where are you going from here? Because I know you're working on a project, and that's what I'm most interested in. I love your backstory, but tell us about that, because I have a feeling that, God's doing the same thing in your life that he did in mine, and is going to allow you to flourish in this project.
Oh man, well, thank you. Yeah, about a year or so ago, um, it kind of came with just a stirring of uh, after 7 years, we've built a really robust, incredible men's ministry at the church, and we'll have upward of 700 to 800 guys show up for a men's breakfast on a Saturday morning. And let me tell you, if you see 700 or 800 guys raising their hand in worship in one space, it's a sight to see. It's a beautiful thing. And we do 3 different retreats that you'll get a kick out of. Jim, is like the one we do in September is the Catalina kayak retreat, and we'll boat over to the island, and we'll do an 8 mile kayak into Goat Harbor, and we'll camp for the weekend. And it's an incredible little private cove, and we'll do incredible, amazing steaks and worship, and the value of getting guys outdoors and experiencing God in creation and in community is a beautiful thing. We do a trip in March called G4, which stands for God, Guys, Guns, and Grub. And about 250 guys show up a little dirt patch outside Barstow. We set up 6 different ranges, and we do an incredible day and a half experience where guys get to shoot guns. But really, it's not about kayaking. It's not about guns. It's about getting guys to encounter Jesus. And obviously, we do incredible barbecue. We have a team of volunteers that call themselves Meal Team 6, and they do some of the most amazing. In the middle of the desert, they set up a 1,000 square foot industrial kitchen, and they cook some of the most incredible food out in the middle of nowhere, which is amazing. And then the last one we do is in June. And I am getting to your question, by the way, but I'm giving some context.
Yeah.
Is called Man Camp, and we bring about 425 to 450 guys up to the mountain, and we have a 2.5 day robust, very intentional, incredible experience for guys to really encounter Jesus. And we always see not only first time decisions for Christ, but all sorts of recommitments and strongholds broken, and just all sorts of life change happens on that mountaintop. And so then we also have weekly groups where guys connect in community. And we have over 95 men's groups that meet on a weekly basis. So I share the context of that because that didn't happen overnight. And one of the things that God was very clear with me originally was the men's ministry when I inherited it was not multi-generational. And what I've learned is most men's ministries in the country are not multi-generational. They become old guy clubs, which is fantastic. We want to see guys at every age group being discipled and following Jesus. But the issue is we're not seeing the 20s, 30s, and 40-year-olds because life is either wrongly prioritized or they're just too busy with life. And the reality is you can't be too busy for what's most important because the rest of your life will fall apart.
Sure.
And so my biggest mission in the first 2 years, my biggest initiative was make this a multi-generational men's ministry and really reach the young guys. And I have all sorts of things I could share on the strategy and the marketing and the intentional things we did. My point is the men's ministry has grown significantly, and the transformation is unreal. And it goes well beyond just the guys being transformed. It goes, like I said earlier, families have been transformed. Generations have honestly been transformed. And what God has stirred over the year, to your first question, or your first part of your question, is I realized that my calling has changed to being from not only being the men's pastor at Mariners Church, but to disciple men as a whole, and to multiply what we've done at Mariners and help churches all over the country and maybe world, I don't know, to build men's ministries and to have them be very vibrant, effective, transformational, all for the most part, all I know is the local church. So I just feel like the church should be on the front runners of building the men of our country, and to step up and to be the men that God's called them to be, to step up, to be the fathers that they need to be the husbands. We have all sorts of terrible statistics about the fatherless generation that we're experiencing. 1 in 4 kids don't have a father in our country. And our divorce rate nationally is about 50%, if I'm not mistaken. And so much of that has to do with men needing to prioritize their life in the right order and recognize that God can be essential in transformation. And we need to help men do that. And so one of the ways that I've seen it work in my own story at Mariners is build a kick-ass men's ministry that guys want to show up to and want to be a part of, that's well beyond themselves, challenge guys and get guys fired up to be a part of what's happening at their local church. And so I'm started a nonprofit about 6 months ago. It's called Maverick River Collective. And one of the things we do, it is a collection of different things. One of the things that we're doing is coaching and consulting churches on how to build vibrant, amazing, transformational men's ministries. And I believe that there's a lot of work to be done there. I've also learned this a statistic that only 10% of our national churches have men's ministries. And the average congregation of our churches is about 39% male. So guys are leaving the church on a pretty rapid number, and I want to be a part of changing those statistics and helping disciple and build men to be life-changing and incredible men and husbands and fathers.
I love that message and what you're doing. And if you're listening, you've heard me say it a dozen or more times if you hear my shows, is I always talk about my values and the order of those values. My value number 1 is God, then family, then health, because without my health, I can't be there for those first 2 priorities. Giving back, making time, because if I don't have the time to do those things. And then the last one is business. The work is really the last priority on my list. And what I've learned, and I'm so glad that you brought it up, Tim, is if you can have your life in order at home and in your relationship with God, everything else falls into play. And I've lived this way, for a very long time, but really outwardly the last 12 years, since I was remarried and now have kids, I realized the strength and power in just calling that out. Like, this is what's important to me. This is how I'm living my life. And I've had the most successful years of my life in a variety of ways, whether that's financially or time, freedom to live in Montana and live my ranch life after my beach life, and all those other things. So if you're listening to this and you're hearing what Tim's saying, where the direction he's going, this is critical in so many aspects, and the rewards are so great if you can put your priorities in order. So Tim, what are you finding so far with men? What's the reception been? Obviously, on some of those trips you talked about, I'm sure it's a great time, but what about people that haven't been on those trips, or guys that you're just meeting in the streets? What's the reception like?
With the nonprofit and with churches, or just the reception with men in general?
Just in general, because I believe that your nonprofit's going to do what it needs to do. I found that there's I used the word earlier, a vacuum, when things aren't available. Like you said, a lot of churches don't have men's groups. Where do they go? Like you said, they're leaving, but I still think that they're searching.
Yeah. As far as like men in general, it's what I've found is I have to work so hard to get guys to sign up or to do anything. Getting 500 to 600 guys in a room for a breakfast is no small feat, because you're trying to convince guys to take time out of their Saturday morning for 2 hours, which is generally their day off. If they're a dad with a young family, you might be butting up against all sorts of Saturday morning activities, sports and whatnot. And so it is really difficult to get guys to do anything. And one of the hardest is to get them to get excited about church. And so relational ministry is essential. And so it's earning the right to be heard. It's being able to know me or know my leaders in order to go, yeah, you seem like someone I'd want to hang with or be a part of some of the things you're up to where there's trust and relational equity to go, you know what, you told me that this is going to be an amazing morning and the speaker is awesome. I've never heard of them, but I'm in, because you invited me, I'm in. There's nothing more probably helpful than a personal invitation when someone takes time to shoot you a text or call you and invite you to something. The power of invitation is critical. And so over a blast email, social media invitation, a flyer, all those things, the power of invitation. So what I've had to do to really build that is build an incredible team. I have a core team, and I can't have key relationships with more than so many people. So this core team, we multiply our efforts in relational ministry. And so everybody on my core team is charged to disciple 3 to 5 men, which to me is a biblical principle anyway. Go and make disciples of all nations. And so that's an expectation of every leader, but really that's a critical piece. And with that, we can build. So the receptivity is always skeptical. I'm not someone that's interested in church. I don't do church. That's not my jam, all the different things. So then we have to move into how do we create an attractional event or ministry that actually gets guys interested. Well, it's somewhat controversial that in my men's ministry that we have an event where guns are a part of. We've pissed a lot of people off with that, no doubt. And when we can really have an honest conversation about that, it's not about the guns. Safety is at the highest priority. We have, usually 25 to 30 range safety officers. Everyone goes through a class, all the different things, but that still doesn't matter to someone that's frustrated that their church has anything to do with guns. But last year we had 9 guys stand up and give their life to Jesus. And it's like, man, that is unbelievable, even if there was one.
Yeah.
And so, those are the kind of things that we do sometimes in order to get guys engaged. Going camping on an island off California and kayaking to a destination is we get a different kind of guy that would be fired up for that, but wouldn't be excited or wouldn't want to do something else. And the same thing with, man camp up in the mountains and different events that we do, mountain biking, surf groups, all these recreational groups. They're kind of the funnel to kind of get guys interested. And then they realize these guys are just like me. There's a misconception on what a Christian man is. And so I'm always trying to counter and help guys realize we're no different than you. We are all broken. We got our own crap, but we're also in pursuit of a fulfilling life that is one that is Jesus is right in the center of. And then we're hoping that they understand that is the best life that they could choose. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
yeah,
that's the best I got.
It does. Unfortunately, there's like 20 rabbit holes I could go down.
I know.
What frustrates me the most, Tim, about your story and what you're doing is that as men, we have to create something exciting for us to get off of our butts and go do fellowship and go do one another and open up our hearts to be emotional and strong leaders in our family, to find God in a way that makes a difference in our lives. You've got to throw guns or kayaking into the mix to get people off the couch. And if you're a man and you're listening to this, or a young man or a teenager or a boy, and you're listening, I really, really want to encourage you to seek fellowship with other men, faith-based, and dip your toe in the water if you haven't before, because like Tim said, we're just like you. I went to Tres Dias a couple weeks ago. It's a 4-day, well, it's 3 days, but really it's 4, men's retreat, no phones, no clocks, it's all on God's time. And it was the most incredible experience I've ever had in my life. And I've been a Christian. Wow. I've been a Christian since 1971. So I'm 50 years. I've been a Christian believer. and it was the most incredible weekend ever. But what I want to tell people is there is two men, actually three men in that event, in that weekend, that are current operators in the military, Rangers, that have seen the worst of worst. And one of them's deployed right now, right after our event. You want to talk about men, guys that are, face death every day in their roles, but these very same men in tears with broken hearts or challenges in their lives, and just opening up their soul. It doesn't make them less tough or weird or anything different. We all have the same struggles in our lives. And it just was amazing to get close with almost 100 guys and learn their stories and hear about their struggles and realize we are all the same.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just bring it back to this, and I'll let you say a few more. But my faith and my values have brought me to where I'm at today, and 100% personal satisfaction in my life. I would say I'm living a 10 out of a 10 with my wife and kids and my relationship with God and my friends. And that does not happen by accident. It happens by work and getting comfortable being uncomfortable. We did a whole show on that. You can search it, guys. Getting comfortable being uncomfortable, but the satisfaction, happiness on the other side of that, it's unbelievable. And I appreciate what you're attempting to do, Tim, and the time that you put into it so far. It just sounds like we need more of that.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's been an amazing start. We're just getting going, and I'm encouraged by the churches that are saying yes and realizing, yeah, our we don't even really have a men's ministry. The closest thing we got is there is a men's Bible study that meets, and primarily that is an older demographic. Again, fantastic. We want guys of all ages digging in and getting serious about their faith, but it's a miss when we're not engaging the 20s, 30s, and 40s, because I mean, even statistically, divorce happens most often in your late 20s through your 30s. That is the time. And so if we can get guys serious about their faith in their 20s and 30s and 40s as well, man, we could actually save marriages and restore the family unit that we so desperately need. And so I'm pretty fired up about the work that's began. And I'm honored to be on your show, and it's really stoked that, we have so many things in common. And even you surfing blackies back in the day, and now you're riding horses, and I'll join you one day. But yeah, the other piece that we're doing with the nonprofit is similar to what we're doing at the local church. Just I'm purposely trying to reach guys that wouldn't show up at the church, that even no matter how attractional you make the event, there is a massive percentage of guys that just don't have interest. And so we're going to get guys outdoors, doing rad adventures on a small scale. Not as big as the retreat you went on a couple of weeks ago, but like 10 to 15 guys. So it's really, like you mentioned, the fellowship's incredible. Connecting with other guys and just recognizing, man, he's going through the same stuff I'm going through, and he's really trying to make some change, and he's really trying to break free of these things, or man, he's really struggling in his parenting, or whatever it may be. It's so healthy for us guys. We don't naturally share the crap that's going on. We're really good at keeping things on the surface level. Yeah, work's good. Yeah, the Chargers are struggling this year, but I'm hopeful, whatever sport, they're talking about. It's just like, our default is to keep things on the surface when we desperately need people that we trust in a close circle to do life with, and be real, be honest. And so we're going to do some retreats. We have a podcast that is kind of similar to yours, in not as business focused, but just getting guys to share their stories and being real, being honest. And then one of the other things that we have is really unique, and I don't know if you knew this, Jim. I'm in a 2,000 square foot warehouse in Newport, and it's an actual men's social club. And you're a part of this club. You get a key. You get to hang out here and it's really cool. It's got all sorts of fun vibe and fun things for guys to come hang out and find fellowship and connection. But ultimately, the goal is to connect guys with other like-minded, God-fearing men. And so there's ministry programs that happen here. There's different fun events specifically for fathers and their kids. There's events for the guys to bring their families. We do family worship nights. We have men's groups. We also have different things that you wouldn't be able to do at the church. We had a whiskey night. We have just all sorts of fun things to get guys in community and ultimately sharing about what's going on and pointing them to Jesus. And so it's a fun project, and so far it's going really well.
I love it. Tim, where can people find out more? What's your website? Where's this warehouse at? How do they find out more about that? How do they connect?
Yeah, so like I said, we are so new. My website's being built in real time. So I have a website, maverickriver.com. It's just more or less a splash page at the time being. We're set to launch that and go live probably in the next 2 weeks. And that would be the main place. You can find my email on that website, and I'd love to connect if anything that I'm sharing today is of interest. My podcast is on all the podcast places. It's called Maverick River Podcast, Conversations in the Wild. The reason it's called Conversations in the Wild is what I've learned working with guys, and you can resonate with this, Jim, is, oftentimes when we're just doing the day-to-day stuff, we don't get real with other guys.
Yep.
But when we're out in the wild is where we slowly start to open up. And around a bonfire, usually if there's bourbon, guys will actually start getting real pretty quick. And that's usually happens out in the wild. And so the concept is to get guys to have honest conversations like they would out in the wild.
I love it. What a great concept. Well, if you want to get a hold of Tim, and the website's not giving you everything you need, stay in touch with me. Tim is definitely somebody I'm going to stay in touch with and follow his story along and make sure that we have his contact down the road. Tim, I'll put this in the show notes too, so we've got a permanent home for your website. And just thank you for what you're doing. Guys, if you think that you're leading, please take a look around and really define what leading looks like. I mean, if you're the guy sitting in the restaurant lobby, sending your wife to the counter to see if your table's ready, you're not leading. Okay. It's the small things. And I know I used to do that. And I know it seems kind of trivial, like sending your wife up to the counter, but you know what, it's your habits. It's where your heart is at and how you lead your home and how you place an importance on your role as a father, as a husband, as a man. And like Tim said earlier, this isn't anything about anti-women. It's about us playing a bigger role and elevating our wife and kids up above us in God's eyes. And this is a great reminder. So Tim, I look forward to getting the show out there, staying connected with you. We'll have to check in 6 months or so and record again.
Yeah, that'd be awesome, man.
Where this all goes. So thank you for tuning in. Hey, if you like the show, share it, man. We want more followers. We want to get this message out there, especially today's message. So thanks for tuning in.